Hello and welcome, everyone. This is session 5. We have Shelli Deckard from Chino Valley from Grace Church, and she is the founder of Thrive's Women's Events. And we're going to have a great conversation because you're going to learn about how women's events can change other women's lives. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. Even though I kind of know her, it's still fun to have her on. So welcome, Shelli.
Thanks, Nicole. I'm super excited to be here today and honored that anybody wants to hear the story of what God's doing in Thrive. So I'm excited.
Yes, it'll be a good conversation. So, but let's get to know you a little bit on a deeper level. So, how did you become a believer and when did your faith become your own?
I was not raised in a faith-based home. I had a good home. I had great parents who are still married to this day. We had kind of the all-American home. My parents were very involved in my activities at school. And as I got older, I was involved in the drill team in high school, and my dad marched parades with us. I mean, I had really good parents, but faith was not a part of our household. It was not discouraged, but it was not something that we participated in. And so about the time I was in high school, I met this gal who was on the drill team with me, and she was different. There was something really engaging and different about her. We were exact same age, same grade, involved in some of the same things, but I just felt myself drawn to her. And of course, I didn't know then why, but I do now. But I came to faith because of my relationship with her. I liked her, and I had invited her to sleep over at my house on one Saturday night. And she said, "Sure, I'll sleep over at your house, but you have to go to church with me on Sunday." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went to church that Sunday, and that was the first time I heard the gospel, and I heard that I needed Jesus in my life. And it just kind of filled me up in ways that I didn't know were empty. And so that was the beginning of my faith journey and how I came to know the Lord.
That's great. So how did God use your past church or job experiences to prepare you for Thrive?
To me, it's so interesting how you have the vision of hindsight, right? You can always look back. Sometimes you feel like you're in life and you're like, what does this mean? And what does this have to do with anything else? And what am I even doing? But looking back over your life, you can see how all these pieces are connected. And so some of the very first jobs that I had, not all, but some of them were sales related. I can remember being 14 or 15 years old and selling Avon back in the day when it was okay to go door to door. And we had those little tiny lipstick samples, and I would give those out. And I loved it. I loved talking with people. I loved the sales part of it. And then later in my life, I sold some clothes and some different things. But as an adult, I started selling Tupperware. Who doesn't have Tupperware, right? And it really was scary at first, standing in front of a room full of women that were expecting you to explain something or be good at something. And it forced me to be comfortable. It forced me to be comfortable being in front of people and talking to people. So I did that. And so somewhere along the lines of that, I got involved with Stampin' Up. So making handmade cards with rubber stamps and inks and things like that. And I started selling that. And that transitioned me from not only being able to talk in front of people, which I had grown accustomed to with Tupperware and different things, but it really showed me the aspect of being a teacher that I really liked. I didn't know I was had the ability to. Now, of course, we're talking about rubber stamps and cards right now, not Bible stories or Bible study. Yeah. But I didn't know I had that ability to do that. And because of that, I learned how to do it. And I really enjoyed having a group of women in my home that were expecting me to have creative ideas and show them how to do things and make things. And I really learned to love that part of it. So much so that it just seemed to transition nicely into a little bit later in my life, about 10 years ago, Guy and I co-teaching an adult Bible study together called Refresh. On Wednesdays, we do that. And I never saw myself being a Bible study teacher. I didn't think I had that in me, but looking back, God used the ability to be in front of people and for me to figure out that I enjoyed teaching to kind of bring me to that place where I felt comfortable with both. So, yeah.
Awesome. What is Thrive?
So Thrive is a few things. I want to kind of present to everyone kind of our overarching theme or a mission statement, if I can use
Sure.
that. And I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong.
That's fine.
And then I'll expand a little bit on it. So Thrive serves as an event that we hold twice a year, where our goal is to provide and promote opportunities for women to connect in relationships with one another, and more importantly, in their relationship with God. And in the relationship with one another, we do that through laughter, through conversations, and through dessert. And then when it comes to connecting them, whether it's a new relationship with God or rekindling a fire or just promoting the consistency of being in that relationship with the Lord, we do that through worship and messages of hope that come through our speakers. So Thrive is a women's event. Thrive is geared specifically towards women. And it was kind of a dream come true for me, honestly. If I can give a little bit of history,
Yeah,
which
please do. Please
is
do.
great.
Yeah.
In 2020, I was working in the school system. I worked in the front office at the elementary school here locally. And so I did phones and people, which I love. I always said the worst thing you could do to me is stick me in a cubicle and not let me talk to anybody, because I couldn't do it. So I loved being in the front office and having that connection to the community and so on and so forth. And I'd been working there for about 4 years at the point when 2020 happened, when COVID happened. And I'm sure anybody in the States will recall that everything shut down, including the schools, and everybody got sent home. And so I found myself at home in my stamping studio with my rubber stamps, having a ball. I was just in here for like hours and hours a day, making cards and sending cards and encouraging others to send people cards who weren't getting out. And it was really, really great. But after just a short time, maybe just a couple, and I was painting furniture too. I mean, I was living my best life. Like I didn't have to look for a job because it was the school job. And so I was still getting paid, but yet I got to stay on the play. So that was really fun. But this went on for a few weeks. And then one day, it's kind of like the Lord just kind of thumped me in the side of the head. And it was like, remember how you always wished that you had time to commune with me more? Remember when you said you were too busy for this, that, and the other thing? Don't you have time now? Don't you have no other responsibilities that are distracting you from being able to pray with me, being able to sit with me in scripture, being able to just enjoy my presence? And I was like, you know what? Yeah. Because when I was younger, all those years when I had a family at home, and I was always too busy, right? I had too many responsibilities, and there's some truth to that, but there's also prioritizing. But I don't want to downplay the fact that moms are busy. Moms have a lot of things. And so here I am faced with all this time and no need or responsibility to get another job. And I thought, I'm going to do this. And so I did. I started immersing myself in scripture. I started sitting with the Lord longer than I ever had. I spent time going on walks. I spent time reading scripture. I spent time studying a little bit more. I prayed for longer periods of time than I had before. And shockingly, my relationship with the Lord grew. Go figure, right? During that time, I started to feel like God was asking me to do something. And I didn't know really what it was. And so I just kind of leaned into him. I just kind of kept praying, Lord, show me. And I was kind of afraid for a while to kind of embrace what I felt the Lord was showing me, only because I felt like, what if it's my idea and it's not his idea? What if I'm just getting excited about something that I want to do? How do I know it's from the Lord? And so I really moved really slowly with that. I had conversations with the people that knew me the best, my husband, some good friends. And through the course of all that, realized that God was asking me to do something for him. My husband does men's breakfasts at our church monthly, every other month. And he would come home from those and tell me, they ate, and then he got up and he gave them a message, and he would say, I told them this and this and this. And it wasn't fluffy stuff. It was iron sharpening iron stuff. And I said to myself, my gosh, I can't believe that you say those things and you speak that kind of truth to them, and they keep coming back. And I thought, I think some of us have experienced in women's ministry where there isn't enough of that. Um, there's a lot of fluff. And I think, in my experience, sometimes we put out the fancy dishes and the pretty decorations, and at the end of the night we say, "Oh, wasn't that special? Wasn't that fun?" But we're not changed because of it.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to do a women's event when the Lord revealed to me that it was an event. I wanted to do something that mattered. I wanted to speak truth. That was an important part of what we were doing. And so fast forward to now, that's what Thrive is that we host an event. We do an event in the spring, which is our bigger event, not necessarily attendance wise, but what we do to prepare for it and what we offer. And we do that in the spring, and it's called the Thrive Women's Conference. And then in the fall now, we do what we call Thrive Worship. They're similar in their style as far as what happens at both events, but the Thrive Worship is just a free community event. We don't do a whole lot of extra for that. We reuse kind of the theme and the decorations from the fall or the spring conference, and we carry them over. But the conference, I know we're going to talk about this in a bit, but the conference is far more involved, and it's
Yep.
something that is you have to pay to get into. So back to just kind of cycle back around. What is Thrive? Thrive is a women's event that exists to promote and provide opportunities for women to connect in community, which we need, and to
Mhm.
connect in their relationship with the Lord.
That is awesome. Um, Getting a little bit into, as you're thinking about you were praying about starting Thrive, you were working
Mhm.
through that, took you a while. What intimidated you about starting this women's ministry, and how did you overcome that?
What intimidated me the most were my own insecurities. I had never done something like that before. My husband has been in full-time ministry for 30 plus years. He was youth pastor, and now he's an associate pastor. And for all those years, I did what I needed to do to support him. I helped out with the youth group. I stayed home with my kids so he could go do youth group. I supported him. I made sure, that we had food and laundry and all those kinds of things. And I supported him. And eventually, and of course, I was always in church with him. But when we started doing Refresh, we co-taught that together. My kids were grown at that point. So those kinds of things. But Thrive was the first time the Lord gave me something that was just for me. And so because it was new, I wasn't taking over the footsteps of someone before me. This is what we do. We just need someone to do it. This was like a whole new thing. And so I was very intimidated by my own securities and my own fears of failure, which I think
Mhm.
are very normal.
Yep.
Um, how I worked through it
Yep.
was a lot of ways, but basically through my own excitement. I worked through it because I was so excited to see what would come. And when women started registering for the first one, I was like, oh my gosh, somebody does want to come to this. Like, they actually think this is a good idea. I sat here in my living room and the Lord showed me this was a good idea. But when people start, forking over a few bucks, you're like, huh, okay. But I also had a ton of support. I had a really good support system in the friends that I brought into this dream with me. My husband is amazing and one of the best supporters that I could ever ask for. He walks me through all the things that intimidate and scare me, and he bolsters my courage. And I, wouldn't want to do it without him. But I also had a great deal of support from our senior pastor at the church. I met with him and kind of shared my dream, and he was 100% on board. And so because of that support, I was able to move forward and just kind of shove down my own fears and work through it. So that's kind of
And
how.
and that's wonderfully courageous,
Mhm.
and having that perseverance to commit to it, stay committed to it. Um, tell me about tell me about this team you have. I mean, you've got Amber, Lisa.
I
Tell
got
me about this
Amber.
team. Yeah.
Yep. So there are 3 to 5 of us that are what we consider the core leaders. And we're the ones that get together regularly and plan and dream and talk about decorations and food and so on and so forth. And then our team grows from there, and that we have greeters and we have women that wait at the cross if people want to pray, and we have registration people and so on and so forth. So our core team, like I said, varies between 3 to 5 people. um, my dear sister Amber, she has grown in her position in Thrive tremendously. Initially, I wanted to bring her in. Let me just pause and say,
Sure.
part of what I love so much about Thrive is that um, it allows me to empower women to ministry. It allows me, and this is something that I didn't know going in, right? It's something that I figured out over the last 5 years of doing this, is that at first I was just really excited to see the women come and love the event and be encouraged by it. And over time, I learned that I still love that so much. But what I also love is building a team. I love encouraging and empowering women to ministry. I love giving them ownership in something that is Christ centered and so full of life, and you can see the growth from. And so this team aspect is this has been a real joy as well. So so we have different positions. Amber is our host. We brought her in as what we call a merch mama. So we do have some merch. We have a logo and some merch that we sell, merchandise. And we brought her in just as an entry level. Hey, why don't you stand over here at the merch table and see if you even like this? And she did. And slowly over time, after just a couple of years, we moved her into the host position. So now she's an upfront person with the microphone, and she's absolutely hilarious, but also filled with the Spirit of God. She is amazing. I literally just love her to pieces. So Amber is a key element in this, and she also is part of that 3 to 5 people that help us plan. Then I have Lisa. Lisa is she's the leader of what we call our production team. So anything that goes involved in making the space look more feminine, the decorations and all those kinds of elements, and so much more. Lisa's in charge of our production team, and she'll have a team of girls that work with her as well. And then we have Eileen. Eileen and I have been friends for, oh gosh, 30, 40 years, 40 years together. And they go to our church now. And she's always been, she loves to cook. She loves to bake. She's all about food. And she worked for a restaurant chain that I won't name for a while. And she was a caterer with them. And so one of the things that came to me from the Lord when it was coming to Thrive was I want to have a dessert time. And that is part of the promotion of the being able to connect with other women having an opportunity to sit without distractions, without kids, all that, and just connect. And I knew there needed to be food. And so the food part of Thrive that we call the mini just for you dessert time. So everything that we do is small. We're talking little cups of this and that, or little bite-sized things, so that you can try everything without feeling like, oh, I took this big piece of cheesecake and I don't like it. I really wish I got that instead. You can try everything. So that's Eileen. Eileen handles the food. And then, of course, she's got a team of ladies underneath her that do all the baking. So we don't buy a lot of things. We make most of our
Wow.
things. Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And Eileen is my go-to girl. It was a natural, hey, use her because that was something she was already good at. And then she has a team of those that make the desserts, and there's a whole process involved in that. And those women are called sugar shakers. Isn't that cute?
That's cute.
Yeah, I love names for things. And so we try to give everybody each kind of role a different name. And so the sugar shakers are the behind the scenes gals that bake all the desserts ahead of time and just kind of manage that whole dessert time during and do all the cleanup and stuff afterwards. So that's kind of the core people there. And then, like I said, we've got greeters. And just this last year, I chose a gal to be kind of our head greeter. And so she walks around with a clipboard and she's like, you're going to stand there and you're going to say that. And we put a lot of time into how we're going to greet people. I always tell them the most important thing you wear is a smile. So don't leave home without it. So we have greeters and we have merch mamas, those that stand at the merch table and sell people things, taking their money. And then we also have registration table that we, have people there. Anyway, that is the team. Yeah. 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 It's quite massive. The first year that we did Thrive was 2020, November of 2020. And we were limited to 50 people. And there was about 10 people on our team at that point. So we had 40 guests and we were so excited to have those ladies. And now we have we just had Thrive Worship in November, but the Thrive Conference in May this year, we had 250 women there for that. And our team, including our merch mamas and our greeters and all of our sugar shakers and our core people, was over 30 people. And so it takes a village, literally. Wow. Yep. So
how long does it take you guys to plan each event?
So Thrive, I'll start with Thrive Worship, because Thrive Worship is the one that's free. We carry our theme from the conference in the spring into Thrive Worship in the fall. So we reuse the decorations and those kinds of things. It's not no work, but it's less work. And yeah, so that we meet a couple of times and we plan it for pretty much about 2 months is all, maybe 3 at the most, as far as we met 1 month and then we meet the next month. Anyways, and we plan that one pretty quickly. It's supposed to be low key. We can't plan a major event like the conference more than once a year. It's too much. So Thrive Worship is supposed to be low key as far as the team's involvement. We have less greeters. We have less people involved in that way, so that we save our volunteers, so that we can pull out the big guns for the conference and kind of use everybody there. So it doesn't take as much planning for Thrive Worship. But when it comes to the conference, that's another story. So because we have been doing this for so many years now, and because I'm married to a type A husband who works off of lists that are detailed and color coded and bulleted and all those things that are foreign to somebody like me, I have learned to be that person. I have learned to take on those organizational skills. And so it started with a simple to-do list, and it's grown into, we start meeting 7 months before the conference, which is fun because we're planning Thrive Worship while we're also starting to plan the conference. There's some overlap there, which is another reason why we try to downscale worship so that we're not burning everybody out. But we have a detailed to-do list that is broken down by month. We do this in this month, and we have deadlines, and we have, we're gonna have our t-shirt design finished by here, and we're gonna have all the desserts selected by there, and we're gonna select the songs. And so it's a very long, detailed list by month. But we do meet for at least once a month for 7 months. And then each team leader, like the production team, Lisa, with the, decorations and those kinds of things, they have different gatherings that they do. And that's the other thing. This is a personal thing. I love names for things. I said that. We don't have Thrive meetings. We don't have meetings because meetings are boring. We have Thrive gatherings. We call them gatherings because I feel like that's more conducive to what we're really trying to do. But nobody wants to go to a meeting. But if you call it a gathering and, whatever, it has kind of just a different connotation there. So the gatherings that we host, or that we meet together several times, like I said, about 7 months we start before, to just kind of dream and plan. It starts early because we have learned, as we have grown from 50 women to 100 women to 150, and then we built this new building at Grace Church, and we can hold a lot more people, that we're having about 250. So we want to plan for them. We want to be prepared. We want to have it right. And so we plan early. We meet early.
Wow, that's amazing. So you've had a variety of speakers from various different places. Mm-hmm. So tell me some highlights of past Thrive event speakers.
Mm-hmm. For the first 2 years, we only had the conference, and it wasn't even called the conference then, it was just called Thrive. But those first 2 years, I spoke. That was something that I felt like the Lord, was telling me, not only I want you to plan this, but I want you to speak. And I was like, me? You want me to speak? But it goes back to your earlier question of being comfortable in front of people. And so I, was already comfortable in front of people, planning a message, that was of value, that was um, deep enough or meaningful enough, impactful enough. That was something that I had to learn to do. But I did speak those first 2 times, and then I saw the event growing, and my husband and I talked, and he said, you're gonna have to pick. Do you want to speak or do you want to organize? What is your passion? And I realized at that time that in order for us to continue to grow and be a quality event, I either had to take classes and learn how to be a speaker, learn how to do that and do it well, which was going to involve a lot of time, or I had to turn that over to someone who already kind of was good at that and involve myself more in the planning. And that's really what I felt like the Lord was telling me at that time. And that's what I came to love, like I was saying before, just building a team and empowering women to ministry. So after those first couple of times, we've hired people, but we hire local people, partly because 250 women is a lot of women, but it's not 3,000 women either, right? And we charge money, but we don't charge a lot of money. And so, we don't have some of the big name speakers that I would love to have, but when I go to their websites to see what it costs to book them, I have to laugh out loud because that will never happen in Chino Valley, right? So one of my favorite stories, since I know you want a story about this, is the third year that we were doing Thrive the conference, needing a speaker. I actually brought in 2 local women to speak, and we kind of gave one of them a longer time slot, maybe 30 minutes to speak. And then the other one was just supposed to be like a little 15-minute support thing or whatever. And there was a gal that I knew that her and her husband used to do ministry at Grace Church, and they are now at a different church in our area. And I felt like the Lord said to me, ask Lindsay to speak. And so I called up Lindsay one day. Actually, I didn't call her. I don't call people. I text Lindsay one day and I was like, hey, can we go to coffee? And she said, sure. And I think I probably let her know I want to ask you to do something. So we meet for coffee one day, and I said to her, this is what I want. I want you to come up and speak, and you're only going to share for about 15 minutes. But I really feel like there's something that you can offer our women with your experience in ministry and as, just the woman that you are. And it was really funny because she said to me, she said, I went on a ministry retreat this summer. And as I was praying through this process of what does God have for me next? What is it that God wants me to do? I felt like God wanted me to teach more. And I said, oh, and then along comes Shelli and asked you to teach. And she goes, yeah, along comes Shelli and asked me to teach. And it was such affirmation for me that I was on the right path with Lindsay. And she was phenomenal. She was great. Everybody loved her. And so when it came time for the conference the next year, my team of women said, you got to bring back Lindsay, but Lindsay gets more time. And so we did. So the next year we brought Lindsay back, and it was really great. But then I found myself, okay, now what am I going to do next year? And, this is one of the trickiest things for me about planning this whole event is finding who's going to speak. And so my husband said, why don't you call the bigger church in town? They have a bigger women's ministry. Why don't you call up the women's director over there and see who they use and who they recommend or whatever? So I did, got this gal on the phone, and I, who do you guys use and how does this come? And she said, Shelli, she said, I don't have all the answers for you. She said, but whoever you use needs to come through connection. And I was like, well, there's that word again. There's that word connection that the Lord showed me was so important, which is the foundation of Thrive, right? Our key verse for Thrive each time we have a theme and the theme verse changes, but our key verse that's at our core is John 10:10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come to give them life and life abundantly. And so everything that we do kind of flows from an abundant life. And I believe that connection and community are a huge part of that. So I'm on the phone with this gal and I'm asking, and she says, you got to come find it through connection. And I was like, geez, okay, that's great. That's what we've been doing. That helps me know I'm on the right path. And she said, here's some names, here's some people that I use, that we've used, that she knows personally, which are like some authors and some speakers that, whatever. And as I'm sharing with this gal from this other church, she starts telling me her story of ministry, the path of ministry, and it is oddly familiar, like my own. And she said, I felt like maybe I was going to be speaking more, and I just felt like that wasn't really what I wanted to do. I really wanted to just involve myself with other women and do ministry. And I was like, that's my story. She's telling me my story. And so at the end of the conversation, we were back to connection and finding a speaker. And I just said, maybe it's supposed to be you. Maybe you're my connection. Maybe you're my speaker. And she kind of went, ha, ha, ha. And then she was. And then she was. Because I met her for coffee a couple months later, and I said, I think it's supposed to be you. And she was. And unfortunately, at our conference last year, she had a death in the family and wasn't able to come and be our speaker. But the Lord provided for us kind of 2 weeks before the event. We had to totally switch gears on that, and the Lord provided. But I'm really excited to say that this same lady that I have the connection with at this other church is coming back to be our speaker in May next year. And so when it comes to speakers, I kind of feel like I'm going to have to keep depending on the Lord to provide them locally. Something, I know that if we were to go more big name, and I'm not talking like Lisa Turkhurst or Lisa Harper. I mean, I would love that, but nobody could afford to come. But if we were to go a little bit bigger name, I feel like we would lose a little bit of our flair that we have. Well, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to come back to there in just a minute because I know it's one of your later questions. So we'll see how the Lord provides with our speakers, but that was a really great story with Lindsay and with Kathy, just how, the Lord brought them in and just affirmed that in my life. So it was fun.
Yeah, and I see your point with the local speakers, having that close connection, because the community needs it. So initially, you wanted to use Thrive events to reach younger women, I remember at one point. So why this demographic? What are their needs? And talk about maybe connecting gracefully for 55 and under that you have.
Okay. So I will say that our target age group has not changed. We still target, we still build for, we still plan what we feel will support the 55 and under crowd. It has been a pleasant surprise to see women outside of that age range come to our events with our contemporary worship music and some of those kinds of things. It has been surprising pleasantly for me to see them come, not just once, but year after year after year, that they love what we're doing. But we haven't changed our focus. We haven't changed our goal. We haven't changed our parameters of what we shoot for there. The reason that I chose that age group is because 5 years ago, our church was smaller, and I was looking around our church, and I saw a lot of gray hair. And I'm getting there myself, but I love the wisdom and I love the heart that come with the older women. But what I was saddened by about that was the lack of younger women, because I know why a lot of them aren't there. And some of it boils down to time. Some of those things that I spoke about earlier, I'm too busy, not able to prioritize my own spiritual life. My kids are doing this activity and that activity. And I just I don't make it to church. I don't whatever. And the Lord just really kind of showed me that that was the target age range group. I remember being in that younger age when I had kids at home still, and feeling like that was a hard time for me as well. And so it really just kind of was on my heart to target that age group, and we affectionately call them women in the middle. I can remember our senior pastor saying, "Women in the middle, I don't even know what that means." What it means, though, is women in the middle of life. When you are in the middle of life, when it is the busiest and the craziest and the most hectic, and you don't always prioritize your own spiritual life, um, we want to have something that is geared towards just you so that you feel welcomed and you feel like the time you spent away from your family was of value to you. And so that's kind of why we target that age range. Building from there, building from Thrive at first, we knew that a one-time event wasn't going to support people spiritually, that we needed to add something on after that. And so after that first event, Lisa and I started a small group called Connecting Gracefully, which we taught together, led together, and we had about 8 to 10 women that came on a regular basis, and it was a small group. We did a Bible study together. But after the second Thrive in November of 2021, I was like, it's go time. Like, we need to turn this into a large group Bible study. This event is growing, and we need, this is a feeder event for us. We don't want to come say, this is a great event. Now, go home, see you next year. Like, we want to have something to offer them in between. And so we switched Connecting Gracefully to a large group Bible study. And Lisa and I, and now Amber, have been teaching that together for 3 years, I believe. So we're very connected to that. But Connecting Gracefully is also a Bible study for women 55 and under. We do it every other Friday night, not every Friday night. And we do it at night because a lot of mamas work, right? And we do it every other Friday so that they don't feel like they have to give up every Friday night. We found
Yeah.
that Friday night was a good night for our church, for our facilities use, but also for the moms. Thursday, there's youth group at our church. And so we need that space for youth group. So we couldn't kick them out and take over for CG. We shortened it to CG because Connecting Gracefully is a lot to say, right?
Yeah.
So we've been doing that, and we have about 30 women each time, and it's a discussion group Bible study. We go through a lesson together and we share. And what we found is that there are several women that are very faithful, that very come, and that speaks to us of the value of what we're doing in that way. But it's so exciting because I remember thinking about trying to plan CG, we're going to do it at night so the moms can come and that kind of thing. And when we started doing it, and there was anywhere from 30 to 40 women come there, I would just kind of sit back in awe that these women were at this Bible study, that if we hadn't been obedient and done it, pushed ourselves out of our own comfort zones, right, and done it, there wouldn't be this Friday night Bible study for these women. And that many women really want to come and study the Bible together and enjoy conversation and fellowship and iron sharpening iron and all those things that we still do. So it is really a joy to do Connecting Gracefully. So thanks for asking.
Awesome. So, how has God used Thrive to bring women close to Him? Maybe share a couple stories of how Thrive's impact.
Well, I am so fortunate and so blessed in that I could talk for probably 35 minutes, which I won't do because there are a lot of stories, but I decided today to highlight two.
Okay.
Um, there is a gal that has been impacted by Thrive, and her name's Erica. Erica is, when I worked at the school, Erica was what I call a school mom. She came into the office because she had a daughter in the school. And I just thought she was really sweet and really cute and nice and all those things. And I started engaging with her, and I felt very drawn to her. I felt like spiritually, I was drawn to her, and I started communicating with her more. I was still doing my craft classes and things, and so I was trying to draw her into that. I invited her and her daughter to a couple of those things, kind of got connected with her, and then I tried starting to invite her to church. And she came from a different church background that wasn't great. And so she was real hesitant about that. So she didn't come. She was always going to, yeah, I'll come, but never did. So over time, just kept loving on her. And when the Lord laid on my heart to do Thrive, she was one of the ones that I invited that very first time. And she came, and she was very excited to come because it wasn't a commitment like being in church on a regular basis was. It was just a one night event. And she came and she loved it. She had not been in church or in community in some time. And here we are 5 years later, and she doesn't miss a Thrive event at all. But because of Thrive, because of kind of breaking down those walls with her and inviting her into that, after a year or two, she did start coming to church, and now she never misses church unless she's sick. She's there all the time. She was involved in Connecting Gracefully for a while. She can't be currently because of time constraints with her now teenage daughter, but she is involved in a just small group discipleship group that I do, and she's so hungry for the word of the Lord, and it's so fun. We call it geeking out. Like, she'll ask me a question about scripture, and she's like, I'm just geeking out right now. And I love to see that in her. But I brought her in as a greeter at Thrive to just give her some ownership, give her some confidence. She didn't have a lot of it, and she fell into that role very easy. She got very comfortable being friendly and welcoming, and she loved the community aspect of Thrive and being able to see women and stuff. And so this last May, I made her my head greeter. I told you earlier that I had a head greeter, and it's her. And so it's so exciting to me to see the difference in her life. She always wanted a relationship with God. She had one in an aspect and in a way, but the relationship she has with the Lord now is so much richer and fuller and deeper, and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I love it. So that is one of my favorite stories. Another one is a gal named Erin. So we've got Erin and Erica. And my poor husband, they both started coming around at the same time, and they're both tall with long dark hair, and he could never keep them straight. So he does now. But Erin, the first year that we did a Thrive Worship event, Erin's friend, which is another success story or a happy story that I could talk about, but Erin's friend was going to be sharing her story at the Thrive Worship event. And so Erin's friend invited her, hey, I'm going to be talking, come hear me talk. And so Erin came to hear her talk. Erin, who was probably around 40 at the time, had walked away from her, been raised in church, had a relationship with God, walked away from her relationship with God because essentially because God did not heal her grandpa and he passed away. Mm-hmm. And so what, like a lot of people do, unanswered prayer results in backing away in a relationship with God. And so she had for many years, but she came to Thrive Worship to hear her friend speak, and she loved it. And immediately, it didn't take any time at all. Immediately, she was in church every Sunday. Immediately, she was coming to Connecting Gracefully. I started my small group discipleship group that same summer because I had a few new gals, Erin and Erica, and the neighbor down the street that invited Erin. They all needed to be discipled. And so just immediately. But what I also love about Erin's story is that Erin's husband was not walking with the Lord, had church hurt through a situation that happened with his mom, who also had church hurt and hadn't been in church in many years. And her husband was always like very supportive of going to church and going to Bible study with us. That's fine. I don't want to go. He did come one time to see the same neighbor get baptized, and that was it. We didn't see him anymore. He didn't stop her from coming, but he wasn't going to come himself. And we prayed. We prayed hard. We prayed hard for a couple of years for her husband. And he now comes to church. He now comes to refresh. He now is involved in guys' small group Bible study. He is on the safety team at church. He helped out with Vacation Bible School. I mean, it's just mind blowing, the difference in their marriage and in their relationship. And his mom, who had church hurt, has recently started coming to church too and received some counseling from Guy. And her daughter got baptized. I mean, it's a whole thing. And so I love Erin, and Erin is also involved in Thrive. She is our head merch person, but she is also on that small team of planners, that 3 to 5 people. And she is kind of our admin person. She takes all of our notes and stuff. And so that's how the Lord has drawn, just to name a couple of stories, in some women in.
That is awesome.
It is. It's a real joy.
What makes, so now that you've had it for a while,
Yeah.
what would you tell yourself back then when you're starting it? Now that you've been here for a while, what lessons could you tell yourself? What encouragement could you give yourself?
What encouragement can I give myself? I think if the Lord calls you to it, you just need to do it. And if you get it wrong, you learn from it. You move on. I think you pray like crazy. I think you listen. You lean on the Lord and you listen, and you immerse yourself in the Word. I think if you start with those 2 things, like I did when I really, really heard from the Lord in a way I had never heard from him before, it changed me, and it birthed this whole Thrive women's events thing that we do. And I think moving forward in the confidence of knowing that this is something that God wants you to do, should be enough to at least get you started. Psalm 46:5, I can't quote it verbatim, but it's the one that says, if God is in her, she will not fail. And I think that for me, that was it. When I stopped being too busy, when I leaned and immersed myself in the Word, when I started really praying, the Lord spoke to me because I was open to it. And because of that, it didn't fail. Certain aspects have failed. Yes, that we have had failures. We have had struggles. Not everything that we did was roses and all that kind of stuff. We definitely have learned the hard way through some things, but we're all the better for it. And Thrive Women's Events is better for it as well. So what have I learned? I've learned that if God tells you to do it, he's going to carry the heavy load, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, and most ministries do experience a little failure. Everything does at some
You
point.
have to.
But that's also, in my opinion, a step to success when you you step up from that failure and you learn from it, and you build something even better.
That's right.
So what makes Thrive Events different than other women's ministry conferences?
I love this question so much. So I'll start simple. One of the things that was very important to me in the beginning when I was figuring out what Thrive was the dessert part. And that seems like a silly thing, but it was just very important to me. And even now to this day, it is one of the things that I don't see at other women's conferences. It makes us a little different in that way, especially the way that we do it with the mini Just For You desserts. So that is something that makes it different. But another way that it's different, we have worked to be polished in our presentation. We have, we plan and we practice and we try to rehearse all the scenarios so that we can present a polished event that women can be glad that they came to. And we have branded ourselves. We developed a logo, a Thrive logo, and we use that on everything to provide continuity so that it's recognizable, whether you see an invitation or a banner by the side of the road, or you put it on a t-shirt, those kinds of things. But with that, with the branding, with the polish, we have tried to stay a little bit small town. We have tried to have a home feel to us. I have been to really large women's events and loved them and gotten a lot out of them and heard the big speakers and the worship bands that we hear on the radio. I've done those kinds of things and they are amazing and they are great. But what I love about our event is that it's local. We use local speakers. Those of us that are planning the event are local. We host it in our local church. We don't rent a venue. We host it in our local church. And we do an aspect or a segment at Thrive called Conversations of Faith. It's pretty much a staple at our event. I pray through and select a woman who is local, usually someone that's in my Bible study or certainly in my church that I know personally. And I ask her to share her story. And we do it very much like right now in a conversation. We sit on the stage at Thrive in chairs and we share her story like I'm sharing mine right now, with the exception of she and I have spent months planning for it. There's a process that I have developed in getting to the place where we can sit there. We narrow it down to the place where she's got a bulleted list of the things that we're going to talk through, and so do I. And we have it in our lap so that we stay on track. But Conversations of Faith also makes our event different. It's not just a speaker. It's not just someone challenging you spiritually. It is a woman that you probably know. It is someone that you will see in the grocery store. It is someone that goes to school with your kids, and you're learning about her story of faith and what God is doing in her life. And that aspect makes our event very different as well. In one of our debrief meetings that we do after a conference, we gather the team and say, what worked, what didn't work, what do we need to change, what was great, what kind of feedback did you get, those kinds of things. One of the gals on our team in a debrief meeting said, I think we should continue to work towards being polished, and I think we should continue to work towards all the things that make our event great. She said, but something that makes Thrive great is that local connection, and I don't feel like we should ever move away from that. And that was so comforting for me, because as an event coordinator, director, I always want to go bigger and better and all those kinds of things. And here was someone on my team who's another, if I can use the term success story, I would love to share her story someday too. She's amazing, and that's what God's done in our, but she's the one that said to me, I think we need to live here with it for a while. And so that's what we've done. And so it comforted me, because I didn't feel the pressure like I had to continue to get bigger and better. Better, maybe, yes, but not more corporate. There are those corporate women's events that we can go to, which are great, but that's not our goal here. Our goal here is to support the local church, whether that's the church that I attend or the church around the corner. We want to support the local church, and we do that best when we spotlight local people. So that's what makes us different.
That's great. So we are coming across to the top of the hour, but
yes, we are.
Yeah. So there's still a couple questions I think are important for our audience.
Okay.
What would you tell a woman who wanted to do something similar in her community?
I think some of the things that we said earlier is really just look around your community, look around your church, find out maybe what the needs are, because there's no need to duplicate something that's already being done well somewhere else. find out what that need is, whether it's an event like ours, whether it's a small group, whether it's a discipleship. What are the needs of that, and pray about it, and start to build a small community slash team, if you will. None of us are the Lone Ranger, nor should we be. We should always be doing something with at least one other person for accountability's sake and for support's sake. Find somebody that you feel like is ministry minded, like yourself. Um, Pray about and partner with that person, and spend some time praying before you launch ideas. Really, really devote yourself in the word, but also don't get ahead of yourself in your excitement. I think that's a very tempting and normal response, but really just wait on the Lord. But when you know what it is, step forward in faith. Step forward in faith. Put your toe in the water and just go for it, and you'll learn from your mistakes and your failures. You'll learn. But if God is in it, it's going to be amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, it will be. Um, how can people, as we close, I want people to be praying for you as a
Thank
ministry
you.
leader and personally and all that. So how can people be praying for you as a ministry leader for Thrive? Let us know how we can pray.
Okay. I need prayer so much. Our whole team needs prayer so much. And if you so much as think of us anytime in the next year, oh, I remember that thing I did with Nicole, with Shelli, say a prayer for Thrive. We appreciate that so much. Being on the front lines in ministry, and not just Thrive, but just church ministry in general. It's a lot of spiritual attack. There's a lot of things that happen. Someone told me once that not everything that's negative in our lives that happens is spiritual attack, but
Correct.
you can't always ignore the timing of it either. And
Correct.
so, I mean, I could share stories about things that happen leading up to a Thrive event, and we always say, of course, of
Hmm.
course it happened this week. Of course it did. Right. But as far as prayer goes, you could pray for us, pray for your leaders who are on the front lines of ministry. But one of the things that is probably not related to just me, probably applies to all ministry leaders, but something that I could definitely use prayer for, I think, is just the burden that I think comes with being a ministry leader. I personally know that I can get very overwhelmed with the hurts of others, with their struggles and their issues and their prayer requests, because it's never ending. And my small group discipleship, we have a group chat, and there's 7 of us, and most days that thing is like rapid fire, and I love it because we are praying for each other. It's a lot of it is about that. But there are days for me as a ministry leader when I have my own struggles and my own hurts and things that are part of life, that taking on the burdens of others, and praying for them can sometimes feel overwhelming, and it's a challenge. I want to honor them because I love them and I care for them, but in my humanity sometimes I get overwhelmed between my own struggles, and then I add theirs to it. And so that's just the honest truth. It's just a lot some days. So I appreciate anyone that would pray for their own pastor, their pastor's wife, their ministry leaders, as well as us. I think if once you're aware that ministry leaders carry burdens of the people that they love and care for, and not just their own burdens, you can understand why some days it's a lot.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. Um, so you got, as we close, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share when the next Thrive event is and
well,
how
thank you.
they can find more information on that.
Great. So our conference is coming up May 15th of 2026. It is at our church in Chino Valley, Arizona. If you and the conference is the big one. The conference is the one with dessert. Dessert tickets are limited. We sell 100 dessert tickets. And then we have about 150 not dessert tickets, and those dessert tickets go fast. So if you want to come, get that fast. But you can find the event at CV, as in Chino Valley, cvgrace.com, under the events tab. I'll tell you right now, there's nothing there because we just finished Thrive Worship and it's too soon to put
Yep.
Thrive up. But when come March, I believe that's where you can go and find out more about the conference. And we'd love to have anybody that's within driving distance come. Be great.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for sharing the background. Thank you for hopefully inspiring others who are looking at doing some sort of women's ministry.
I
But
hope
thank you
so
for
too.
persevering through the commitment of leading this thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And So thank you for that. For the rest of you, we have one more session left of our online conference today, and that is a panel discussion with missiologist experts, including Joshua Project and JD Payne. So join us in an hour. We'll see you then. Thank you, Shelli. Do stay on. Thank you, Shelli.
Thank